good morning, dear WCEF participants and dear friends, and welcome to this session titled The Wardrobe of the Future, How to Change the Textiles and Fashion Industry. In this session, we'll be tackling an industry that is one of the most harmful around, but we will also be inspired by the many solutions that aim at making the sector circular and help tackle the root causes of the industry's problems. I think we all know that the textiles and fashion industry really needs to clean up its act. It's a big player in the global economy, linked to many other industries, such as agriculture, chemicals, transport, and the creative sector. It's closely tied to gender, labor, and poverty issues, and it's really one of the most harmful industries when it comes to climate and biodiversity, creating lots of carbon emissions, polluting water bodies, creating waste and microplastics in our oceans. So the big question is how to change this big and interconnected and very complex system into a sustainable one. In this session, our approach to this big systematic question is all-encompassing. In order to achieve real change, business, policy, innovation and design all must become intertwined. And that's why in the following 75 minutes, we'll be touching upon policy issues, state-of-the-art research, and we're going to get acquainted with some very interesting case studies. My name is Sini Koskimies, and I'm very proud and privileged to be able to host this session. I represent Aalto University, Finland, and especially its School of Arts, Design and Architecture. And we're very pleased to be partners of the WCEF this year, so thank you, Sitra, for inviting us to be partners. At Aalto University, we believe that it is possible to reinvent the rules of the textiles and fashion game by designing these big systems in closed loops instead of looking at single products or single users. So let's dive right into our program and meet our first case study, a very inspiring one. We're going to start with a short video, so please. So that was Fluff Stuff, and the CEO of Fluff Stuff, Erno Launo, was supposed to be here today, but unfortunately Erno couldn't make it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to summarize his key messages in a very, very condensed and short form. Fluff Stuff certainly has a very holistic approach to its business because it is trying to impact society on many different levels. So, of course, this fluffy filling that you just saw in the video, it is a great substitute for polyester filling or duck-down filling. And we know that polyester is of course, oil-based, and then duck-down has problems because it is linked to animal cruelty. So it's really a natural and a sustainable alternative. But that's not the whole story, because Fluff Stuff is also aiming at restoring peatland ecosystems. And so this cattail plant, which you just saw on the video, could be cultivated on peatlands that have been restored back into wetlands. So it's also an initiative to find new sustainable farming practices and then help biodiversity. So we wish all the best to Fluff Stuff, even though Erno couldn't make it today. Hopefully we'll see this fluffy filling in our stores, in our pillows and maybe our winter coats. But a startup like Fluff Stuff was born circular, so they have been able to align their business model with the principles of sustainability right from the start. But of course, bigger companies and brands don't have that luxury because they are linear by default, and they have to make the extremely difficult shift to circularity. Legislation is surely accelerating this shift, but forward-thinking companies are already leading the way with voluntary actions. And next we'll be hearing about two interesting collaborations where several pioneering industry players, including big brands such as Adidas and H&M, are coming together to demonstrate new entirely circular models of operating. So I want to invite our first speaker, Kirsi Roine, Key Account Director from the Infinited Fiber Company, to tell us more. Please, Kirsi.
Thank you, Sini. And good morning, everybody. So I'm Kirsi Roine from Infinited Fiber Company. Infinited Fiber Company is a company that is here to turn the linear model of textiles to a circular model. So what we do, we turn post-consumer textile waste to a brand new fiber. But today, we are not going to do this alone. There is not a single company that can transform the whole industry. So today we are talking about collaboration and how to harness that. So let's talk about a little bit about the drivers. Today, every single second, there's a truckload of textiles going to the landfill. That is unbearable because that is actually something that we can reuse. That is something that we can really see as a precious resource, and that needs to change. And EU is now taking actions on really trying to turn the whole fashion industry to something circular. And the waste collection and recycling is mandatory in the future. So, as we are the company that is really concentrating on one part, the technology part, the innovation, how to do that, we need some of the partners to create a whole ecosystem. And that's why we have been creating a New Cotton project. This project has been received funding from European Union, from Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program, under the kind of agreement, which number is there? This is something I need to say. So, and then if we think about who needs to be there, if we think about the whole supply chain of textiles, it starts usually in a linear model, for example, from the farms. It goes to the, then to the yarn spinning and fabric manufacturing, then to the garments. And after that, it goes to the source and the consumers. And after that, we know where it goes. It usually goes to landfills. So what we started to think about is that who needs to be there? Of course, there needs to be an innovation that can do something for that waste. But then there needs to be the ones that are collecting it, ones that are sorting it, ones that are turning that innovative fiber into yarns, to the fabrics, to the garments, and then finally putting those to the markets. But that's not the only thing that we need. We also need the business models. We need LCA studies. We need an understanding for the fuller concept. So that's why the New Cotton Consortium is all of these players. Other university is there to do the business model studies. Then there's Adidas acting as a manufacturer of the garments and putting those to the markets. Fashion for Good is there to talk about us, to tell to the people that what we are doing. Then there's Frankenhuis. Frankenhuis is in Holland. They are the shredder of the textile waste. So textile waste needs to be sorted before it can be handled. H&M Group is another brand that is there to put those to the markets. And then there is us, Infinity Fiber. We are the one that is making the whole processing in between. And then there is yarn manufacturers, textiles makers, Innovafil, Kibas Textiles, and Textina. There is also RISE Institute from Sweden that is doing the LCA studies. SAMK from Savonlinna is doing some of the processing also. And all that really creates the whole ecosystem. And what we have been learning from that is that we now see where are the biggest things that needs to be evolved. And one of the findings is that there is still a lot to do in the sorting and collecting of textiles. That is a very important part. If the innovation doesn't get the materials they need, it won't turn the whole circular model something that we can live for. Then what we have been seeing is that, okay, now when we put those products to the markets, there is always those consumers that doesn't understand what is this product, how it's made, and what is different, because the look and feel is always the same. We are aiming to make similar products, but now the consumer needs to be educated that they are doing something awesome. Then let's talk about a little bit about the other project that we are doing. So there is a project called T-Rex. This is run by Adidas. And because we, as an Infinity Fiber company, we are concentrating on turning cotton-rich textiles into something new. There needs to be those other players that are doing the other streams, the polyesters, the polyamides. So that's what T-Rex project is all about. It's aiming to demonstrate the whole sustainable chain in a much more wider perspective. Really kind of conduct a life cycle analysis for those circular processes that are there. Also, we are looking there how to create certain circular design guidelines. Because every single fabric that comes to the circulation needs to be designed for circularity also. If that doesn't happen, if the designers doesn't think what they are putting into the markets, we are facing the fact that what comes to the circulation is those kind of materials that has, for example, 3 different fibers in it. It could be plastic and cellulosic, and there could be trims. And that is not good for going into the second round. So that's what we are trying to do there also, to really create the circular design guidelines also. So what needs to happen to create a circular business? Of course, it has to be financially viable. It's not often talked how much money is needed, for example, to build up huge facilities that are doing the recycling. Those are big bucks. And there, what we need is the support from the governments, support from the EU, support from the consumers also. You, every single one here, is a consumer. If you are willing to pay 50 cents more for the T-shirts to have something circular in it, I think that is a choice, and that's a choice everybody needs to make. Then there is talk about the cost accumulation in the value chain. Now when we are creating a circular fiber, what happens usually in a linear model is that when the yarn manufacturer is making the yarn, even though you can use it as any other fiber, they are putting some extra to the price. Same with the fabric manufacturer, same with the garment maker, which ends up to the kind of like actual cost of the garment is going to be much bigger. What we need to change is that the processing has a certain price, not really. Of course, there's a value in a new product, but where that value is, that is something that we need to think. Of course, there's a lot of needs for high investments for these kind of solutions. Not only Infinity Fiber Company, we are actually scaling up today to Finnish Lapland to produce 30,000 tons per annum of fibers for this industry. And what we have been seeing is that kind of the cost of those ramp-ups are huge. And it's same for every single player. So what we need to understand is that there is a big need for investment also. Policies and laws are going to be helping us on that. There is going to be different kind of policies around textiles, which we probably hear a lot more today. And it's exciting to hear how well those are prepared and how much they are thought of, because they are coming from the totally different angles also. And to boost the circular innovation and the stakeholder collaboration is something that we need to do. Talk a lot, create ecosystems, try to create something that can really demonstrate how this can be done, because the collaboration is key in everything. Finally, I want to show you something that is done with these collaborations. These are actually from the New Cotton project, released to the markets. There is 2 comments. First is Adidas by Stella McCartney outfit. There is 60% of recycling content in those comments, and those are made from post-consumer textile waste. So it's doable. It can be done into 100% also, but what we wanted is to have a very similar look that we have had in the clothes that they have been released into the markets earlier. And then there is another collaboration which is in the same project. This is what H&M brings to the markets. A little bit of kind of like a more trendy cargo pants and then jacket to be with that. And what we see from the T-Rex project, that remains to be seen if those goes to the market or just to the studies. But in the T-Rex project, it's very important that we understand how these innovations can work side by side. So we can utilize whole stream from textile waste. And that is the most important thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsi. So collaboration is key. That's how I read your presentation. But one question definitely comes into mind. How is it possible that a startup like the Infinited Fiber company has been able to round up this whole ecosystem of actors, and you're actually getting things done, and you're really managed to execute the project too?
That is actually a very good question, because it's not easy. And if we think about kind of like getting the consortium together, that is the easy part. It's very easy when there is such a will to do certain things and really turn something different. But then when you start to run it, we had no idea how hard that would be. And so it has been a learning process for us. We are very happy that we have such a good collaboration between the different participants. And I think that's kind of like the warm, welcoming environment where we are doing things and sharing things also. And that is the key to kind of like run the project smoothly. But at the same time, it's a lot of paperwork, which is always heavy. And I think that at the moment, kind of like we are doing their collaboration also, trying to create those paperworks as soon as possible to kind of like be on time in everything. And that's not easy, but it's fun.
Well, it's fun. That's good to hear. Now, I'm sure that many people in the audience would love to know what are the concrete outcomes that will come out of especially maybe the new cotton project, and how can other actors in the sector learn from it?
Yeah, so of course the comments is one thing, but then when we think about what else comes from there, for example, we are making LCA studies, which will be public, and where you can see how the circular model is affecting to the linear model and really affecting to the LCAs of those garments. What we are doing there is actually a lot of white papers coming out, which will be public. Aldo is doing a lot of that. And there is lots of studies and kind of like an understandings of what we have been doing and how the ecosystem will work in the future, to kind of like get in an understanding that what are the things that needs to still be improved. That is probably the biggest takeaway, because then we can attack those things.
Yes, let's attack those things. So thank you very much, Kirsi, for this inspirational presentation. So Kirsi's presentation certainly made a point that it's a good idea to be proactive and in the forefront of change instead of adopting a wait-and-see strategy. And this takes us to our next speaker, who is a representative of the European Commission. She's Emmanuelle Maire, Head of the Circular Economy Unit in the Directorate General for Environment. And Emmanuelle will give us an update on the EU strategy for sustainable and circular textiles, which is currently in the making. So, Emmanuelle, please.
Thank you, Sini. Good morning, everyone. It has been really great to hear you, Kirsi, explaining, the concrete challenges and all the innovation that you're promoting. So I'll try to give you now the policy picture from the European Union and tell you what is happening across Europe, how the political forces are really pushing to have a much more circular textile economy and do away with the linear models. So a brief introduction, the textile strategy, which we issued last March, is part of a wider agenda on the Circular Economy Action Plan, but also on the European Union Green Deal to reach climate neutrality by 2050. So the Circular Economy Action Plan is not a policy on waste. It's really a policy that addresses, the production, the products, the consumption, the waste, and the transformation of waste into new resources. And when we designed the Circular Economy Action Plan, we were really looking at action, at an action agenda at European Union level that could help change the way we produce and we consume. We identified a number of critical value chains, and you can see them here. So electronics and ICT, batteries and vehicles, packaging, plastics, construction and buildings, food, water and nutrients, and of course, textile. It has been said, the impact of textile production on the climate, on the resource use, the water use, the land use, the use of fossil-based materials, chemicals, you name it, you have a recipe for environmental degradation. So we really need to change the way we work. And in the European Union, we see today that textile waste represent approximately 12 million tons of waste, mostly, the products that we discard, us, consumers, and that only 20% of that waste is actually prepared for reused or recycled. So you have 80% of textile waste going to incineration or to landfill with the impacts which we know. So it's a loss, a tremendous loss of resources. Fast fashion is obviously flooding the European Union market with low-cost clothing and textiles, and consumers are mostly unaware of the environmental impacts, both within the European Union, but also outside the European Union. So there is a massive footprint out there. So this is why, we proposed in March last year a vision, a road to 2030, where our aim is that by 2030, all textiles products placed on the European Union market are durable, repairable, and recyclable, to a great extent made of recycled fibers, free of hazardous substances, and produced respecting social rights. We've been running a number of communication campaigns, and our motto has been reset the trend. Fast fashion is out of fashion to make sure that Europeans could benefit from high-quality textiles. We are really betting on all companies who are now doing a great efforts to run new business models, profitable reuse and repair services, because this is what we need in the European Union. A key aspect is also to make sure that producers take responsibility across the entire life cycle of a product for their production. And then, again, circular rather than throwaway clothes have to become the norm with sufficient capacity for recycling and minimal incineration and landfilling. So you may say, how do we get there? So we have a number of key actions in the textile strategy. One of the key actions is to have new design requirements for textiles which are being placed on the European Union market. Currently, the European Parliament and the 27 member states are revising a directive which is called the Eco-Design Directive, which currently addresses only energy-related products. But the great benefit is that you cannot place on the European Union market a washing machine that doesn't have a certain level of energy efficiency. Tomorrow, what we would like to have is an EU legislative system which allows us to tackle any type of goods, including textiles, to prevent the placing on the market of products which are not environmentally sustainable. So there is a lot of work that is currently ongoing on the eco-design, and if we succeed to get the authorization from the European Parliament and the 27 member states, we will then be able to have new design requirements for textiles. I'll tell you a bit more about this. But design requirement placing on the market is critical. Then, how can we stop, the destruction of unsold or returned textiles? We see that it's ongoing in the European Union. It's creating a lot of negative feelings also in the public opinion, because how can you, destroy new goods when we have the planet we know? So stopping the destruction of unsold or returned textiles is the second action. Then to have greater, clearer information on textiles and digital product passports, to tackle greenwashing, and to introduce mandatory extended producer responsibility with eco-modulation of fees. I'll tell you a bit more about each of the action. So on the eco-design negotiations, again, the objective is to be able to have binding performance requirements as soon as we have the mandate from the European Parliament and from the Council. And last week, the 27 member states actually came to an agreement collectively. So there is already a common position from the 27 member states on the need to have this binding performance on durability, reusability, repairability, fiber-to-fiber recyclability, and mandatory recycled content. There is also an agreement in general to introduce mandatory criteria on green public procurement. So this would mean that the public purchasers tomorrow across Europe have an obligation to buy green textiles. And then the 27 member states, they went further than our proposals on the destruction of goods, because we thought we need more data before going to the ban on the destruction of goods. But they said, no, let's go quickly on a ban on the destruction of textiles goods. So they are ambitious, and I expect the same position from the European Parliament. So again, we would also be in a position to set information requirements and digital product passports. Another key aspect is to tackle greenwashing. So here again, negotiations are ongoing on the so-called directive on empowering consumers, and we expect an agreement this year, which would allow to ban, for example, generic claims. My textile is green, my textile is eco-friendly. So this type of very generic, vague statement would not be authorized in the European Union. We are going a step further with a directive on green claims, specifically green claims, to request companies who are making voluntary green claims on their products to substantiate them, because today, believe it or not, across all sectors of the economy, we have half of the green claims which are not substantiated or which are really vague. So we want to crack down on these green claims, requiring companies that make voluntary claims to back them by evidence, communicate them correctly, and have them checked by verifiers across Europe. We will be also reviewing the European Union Eco-label, which is our best-in-class brand for textile products. So next year, we'll start the revision of the EU Eco-label. So now I'm addressing the waste part. It has been said before. On the 1st of January 2025, all countries of the European Union will have to collect separately the textile wastes. So we are going to end up with a lot of textile waste, which we will have to manage. We don't have specific targets on the reuse or on the recycling of textiles, contrary to other value chains. But we are looking at the possibilities to address that. What is very important for us is the question of the extended producer responsibility. In other words, the polluter pays principles. Because today, you can place on the European Union market products and you don't have to care for the collection, the sorting, the recycling, the payment of the waste treatment, except if you are in France or in the Netherlands where they have already extended producer responsibility. Some other countries are trying to have this. So we are looking at the possibility this summer to propose a new waste framework directive, which would have common rules across the European Union to make sure that producers can pay for the cost of the treatment of the waste. And the great benefit is that it would reward the textile producers who are really making an effort in designing their product as circular, but it would also give us the financial means and the investment resources to go much further into building the recycling, the reuse and the recycling capacity in the European Union and avoiding, again, incineration and landfill. We are working a lot with the industry, and we have a transition pathway at European Union level, which looks at this green transition with the industry, but also on, on the digital transformation of the industry and its resilience, because we know that after COVID, it has been extremely difficult for the European industry to pick up again. So soon we will have the transition pathway, which is a nice and very informative report on what needs to be tackled together, and also explaining what are the funding streams which are available to do this. So this is an important point to follow. Now turning to funding and funding research, I wanted to highlight that there will be more opportunities like Kirsi to build consortia and to work on the research side. From October this year until February next year, we will have two big calls for several projects, all focusing on extended producer responsibility, but also innovative sorting, recycling, and design for recycling. I also wanted to mention one project which is currently ongoing, which is on bio-based materials for locally manufactured, sustainable and circular clothing. For us, these projects are immensely valuable because there is what we call a policy feedback. So from these research projects, we get a chance for the policies to take the findings from the research community and see how we can promote further circular textiles. So it's extremely important. There are many more possibilities to access funding in the European Union, be it through the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which helped us going out of the COVID crisis. So a lot of loans and grants are available there. Regional policy is also another possibility to access funding in regions which are lagging behind compared to others in the European Union. And obviously, the European Investment Bank is also, helping for funding more projects and having these public-private partnerships. Last word, maybe before finishing, I'd like also to encourage you to look at the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform. Citra is a member of the European platform because a lot of good energies went into textile and transforming the economy into a circular textile economy. So you will find a lot of webinars, you will find a lot of position papers, but also a lot of good practices from Europeans that invest in the circular economy. If you have some good examples, please send them to the circular economy stakeholder platform, because this is the way to share between Europeans, but also beyond Europe, the findings and the good practices, and to spread the word. So with this, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention, and I hope we get a maximum support for the EU circular textile strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. These policies are sure to make a big impact in the whole industry, and I'm sure that our audience and the whole industry is anticipating this and waiting for the policies to get ready. But can you tell us what are the next key moments of the strategy?
Yes.
Timeline.
So tomorrow we expect the vote from the European Parliament on the EU circular and sustainable textile strategy. And so we expect a very strong support in favor of turning this sector into a circular one. So for us, this vote will be very, very important and give a political push to the strategy. Also this summer, as I told you, we aim to improve the way the Waste Framework Directive to ensuring the extended producer responsibility for textile waste. So it will be another key moment. And there will be the transition pathways. I told you, please look at the report because it's really informative and it gives the full picture of where the industry is, what we can do, how we can pledge and be united in Europe, but also with third countries.
Great. So tomorrow is a big day. It's a very topical session here. And I'm sure that many would like to know that how will it be possible to contribute to the Eco-Design Directive? Mm-hmm.
So this will be absolutely critical, because once we get the green light from the European Parliament and the 27 member states on the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, we will be able to proceed with a specific act on sustainable textiles and have these binding performance requirements I was telling you about. And the criteria will be developed by the scientific arm of the European Union, the Joint Research Centre. We have our offices in Sevilla, and we have a so-called product bureau in Sevilla. And so if you Google Joint Research Centre, Product Bureau, you will find the link. It's very important that you register as an interested stakeholder, and then you will be involved in all the consultations which will be ongoing to make the scientific basis for these criteria. Then obviously they will need to be agreed politically, but we will need the input from everyone to make sure that they are the right ones.
Exactly. So that's a good tip for everybody here and also everybody online, because we know we have a lot of people listening to this session online too. But thank you, Emmanuel, very much for taking the time to come here to Helsinki to tell us. Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Now, once the EU policies are in place, they will certainly have ripple effects all around the world. And our next case study represents the Global South and is in fact directly linked to the textile waste issue, which was also in Emmanuel's presentation. So let's have a look at a short video introducing Rewoven, a textile recycling startup based in Cape Town, South Africa. And after that, co-founder and CEO Esetu Senga will join us online.
The fashion problem, it incorporates a lot of the issues that we have globally around the way that we use resources. Things are here today, gone tomorrow.
Just to make one t-shirt uses 2,700 liters of water, and we're consuming about 100 billion items of clothing a year. 70% of second-hand clothing gets donated to Africa, but only about 40% of it is reusable. So the rest of that ends up in African landfills, where it actually could be recycled.
We thought, let's get ahead of the problem and make sure that we're finding alternatives for textile waste.
We divert textile waste from landfill. We collect from source where the textile waste is generated, mostly garment manufacturers that we work with, but we also work with any other entity that generates textile waste, hospitals, security companies, and so forth. And some will drop off, we can collect from.
At that point, it's then put into its different categories. So cotton is put together, polyester is put together, it's then put in the baler, it's pressed, it's weighed, and then it's stored for our clients.
Some of them make filling material for upholstery, some of them make disaster relief blankets, some of them make automotive car rear shelving, some of them make carpet underlays. So that's what currently a lot of our textile waste gets recycled into, downcycled products. Our ultimate vision obviously is to be able to also upcycle, so to be able to recycle this textile waste to make things like fabric and clothing and yarn that is really strong quality. The biggest challenge right now is sourcing equipment and setting up the production line that we require to be able to do this. That generally requires quite a bit of funding, and there isn't a lot of textile expertise anymore in South Africa. So it's something that we need to have to learn somewhere else so that we can do it here at home.
To date, we've managed to recycle 440,000 kilograms of textile waste, and that's offcuts. And then in terms of end-of-roll material, we've managed to recycle 4,500 meters of end-of-roll material from landfill. Per month, we're able to recycle 30,000 tons, and that's in Cape Town alone.
We think the future of sustainable fashion is where, the future of fashion is going, and so that's why we're in the work that we're doing.
Hello, Esetu.
Hi, Sini.
Great that you could join us online. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. And good morning to everyone. I would have loved to be there in person. And it's summer there, I believe. I'm all in Cape Town, or cold and wearing coats. But thank you so much for having me. As Sini has introduced me, I am Esetu Tenga. I am one of the co-founders and CEO of Rewoven. I am an economist by qualification and trade, with a particular passion for development economics, particularly sustainable development. So that's what's brought me to the work that I do. So as you've seen in the video, Rewoven is a circular economy business with the focus on textiles. We are passionate about diverting textile waste from landfill and making sure that it gets recycled. We are based in Cape Town. A lot of people don't know, but we are quite a big clothing manufacturing hub. So we're the biggest in South Africa, but one of the biggest on the continent. And so we have a lot of textile waste, basically, because we produce a lot of clothes. And I just want to share, I have two key messages that I kind of want to share, but I just want to start by explaining a little bit about how we do what we do before I get to that. So as you would have seen, we work largely with garment manufacturers given to our predisposition to clothing production, but we also work with, a variety of entities that have textile waste to dispose of. We essentially have a textile waste management service, which is a service that we offer to our clients. In that space, we essentially compete with waste management companies and we compete with landfill. Landfill prices in Cape Town are growing quite annually, so we're quite competitive in that space when it comes to textile waste disposal. We collect the textile waste, it comes into that warehouse that you saw. Some of it comes sorted, but we also do sorting for our clients. We then, as we mentioned, we bale it and then we sell it on to recyclers. The big challenge that we have now is that the recyclers that we're selling the textile waste to are based 1,000 kilometers away from where the source of the textile waste actually is, which is in Cape Town. And with the amount of textile waste that we're now getting, it's no longer environmentally friendly or even operationally efficient for us to be shipping so much textile waste all the way across the country. And so the business is now looking for a solution locally in Cape Town. We have been operating for about 3 years. To date, since that video we recorded it last year, but currently we have recycled collected and recycled close to 800,000 kilograms of textile waste. In 2 months, we'll reach 1 million kilograms of textile waste that would have collected for recycling. So it's a lot of textile waste, and we really want to find a solution to recycle it in Cape Town and upcycle it really into products such as apparel, footwear, homeware, accessories, etc., that we can retail in South Africa, but also export into other markets such as the US and EU markets. And so that's what we're currently doing now. We're fundraising, we're looking for collaborating partners, we're looking for potential clients in export markets. And so if any of you are interested, please do reach out. I've seen some people connecting with me on LinkedIn, and also you're welcome to reach out to me on our website. But the 2 key messages that I would like to kind of speak to, the first one I think came through in the video, but I just want to share a little bit on it, just to bring awareness to the textile waste problem. I do believe that, you know, Africa is often a forgotten continent, and I think particularly when it comes to this topic. Cape Town, for instance, we're producing about 68,000 tons of textile waste annually, and we're the biggest textile waste source in South Africa, but the whole country has 3 million tons. And so where does the rest come from? So we, as the African continent, and I know a lot of other countries on the continent are in a similar position where we are dealing with a lot of our own textile waste from our own growing clothing industry, but a lot of it actually comes from the West. A lot of it comes from the global North under the guise of donation. And so a lot of these garments come into Africa and they're actually not reusable. Stats are telling us that only 40% of what is coming into Africa under secondhand clothing donations is actually usable. The rest is just going to landfill. And just to put some numbers to that, in places like Ghana and Accra, 15 million items of clothing are entering Accra every week. 15 million every week is entering Accra. And that's the same in Ghana, that's the same in Kenya, that's the same in Tanzania. And I was engaging with my local government, who is now quite stressed with the problem because they're trying to look for solutions and they're asking us to help. It's a problem in South Africa as well. So I really want to bring awareness to this problem. I believe as someone who's working on this problem on the continent, I wouldn't be responsible if I didn't shed light on this problem. It's quite an overwhelming problem. And obviously, the irony of the situation is that Africa isn't a big consumer of fast fashion. One, because obviously of our socio-economic position, but two, also culturally, Africa, we tend to be slow consumers and slow producers. And so it is really because of the overconsumption in the global north that the problem has now spilled over into the continent of Africa. And we're already under-resourced. We really have a lot of challenges on the continent. So this kind of exacerbates what we're already trying to find solutions for. The second point that I'd like to make is when it comes to solutions, and I love that it's already come up already, with regards to solutions and having a collaborative approach to solutions. A lot of the startups in our space in the global north have been able to get a lot of funding and have been really able to innovate quite quickly because of the expertise that's in the global north, knowledge, technical expertise. And this is something that I would like to implore the stakeholders in this space to please kind of share that with stakeholders such as ourselves on the continent as we try work through this problem. Obviously, it's a shared problem now, and I believe that when it comes to the solutions as well, it should be a shared approach to the solutions. So if we cannot hoard knowledge and expertise, that would be very grateful, I think, when it comes to solving this problem. So as I mentioned, I'm one of the people on the continent working on this. Please do reach out. We're looking for collaborators. We're looking for people with expertise, technical expertise, who have equipment and knowledge on that, as well as we're looking for export markets. So please do connect with us with regards to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Esetu. We wish Rewoven all the best, and I'm sure that we have, because we have a nearly full house here and lots of people online, that your messages were heard. So thanks a lot, Esetu, for joining us.
Thank you, and have a good rest of the session, everyone. Bye.
Okay, after several interesting case studies and touching upon policy issues, it's really time to zoom out and have a look at the big picture of the industry's sustainable future. We're going to move on with the program, and the United Nations Environment Program is launching here at the WCEF, the Sustainability and Circularity in the Textile Value Chain, a Global Roadmap report, which outlines what each stakeholder group can do individually and collectively to reach the shared destination of a circular textile sector. And this report builds on research and consultations with over 140 different stakeholders in the sector. And we will now get a chance to hear about the report's insights and recommendations when I invite Claire Thibault, UNEP lead on circularity, to the stage. Please, Claire. You can take the middle seat. And also I want to invite our very own sustainable textiles and fashion specialist, Kirsi Niinimäki, professor at Aalto University, to join us on stage and discuss systemic change within the textile sector together with Claire. So Kirsi, please take a seat. Welcome, Claire and Kirsi. Now, let's start with UNEP's report, and I just realized that I need the clicker because I'm going to work with the slides. So we're going to start with UNEP's report. So Claire, can you tell us what it recommends in order to transform the textile sector to circularity?
Thank you, Sini, and very happy to be here with you today to launch our global roadmap. And actually, before digging into the specifics of our recommendations, if you allow me, I'd like to step back a little bit to explain a bit of the journey we took to come up with that roadmap. Essentially, UNEP follows a value chain approach in the textiles work. And one of the core principles is that we prioritize action in line with the most pressing challenges or hotspots of the textile value chain. And this first analysis step translated into a report in 2020, a global stock-taking report, which identified the key hotspots of textiles. And that includes, for example, chemical use during production, but also GHG emissions during the bleaching, dyeing, finishing processes, but also at use stage, the significant freshwater footprint of our washing practices of our clothes. And in line with another core principle of the value chain approach, which requires to be as inclusive as possible to develop and agree on a common agenda. As you outlined, we conducted extensive consultations with over 140 experts from all regions, because we needed to ensure that the global roadmap would speak to their needs and their priorities. And actually, I take the opportunity here today to thank them for the engagement, and that make the global roadmap such an inclusive and collaborative effort. So now back to the key priorities that the roadmap identified. So the very first one is about shifting our consumption patterns to make more circular textile first available, but also desirable and accessible, and that includes circular business models. Second, we need to improve practices, and that range from our production practices, such as improving wet processing to minimize waste and pollution, but also it touches upon social aspects. I'm thinking of reskilling of workers to accompany them in the circular transition. And third, we need to invest in infrastructure. And that includes, for example, water treatment to remove pollutants like microfibers, for example. So those three priorities will require a lot of work, and from all of us, and from across the globe. So what the UNEP roadmap does is that it translates those three priorities into more manageable building blocks, 9 building blocks, where we believe each stakeholder group has and should play a role in advancing those blocks. And I'll be sharing a bit more later.
Yeah, sure. Yes, and I think that we have been touched upon, this session has already touched all of these areas, but maybe one thing that stands out in my view is the part with the changing consumption patterns, and especially the speed of it, or maybe the lack of speed of it. So Kirsi, how would you like to comment? What can be done to accelerate new consumption patterns?
Yeah, that's actually is a quite big challenge, because we are so used to this kind of cheap garment prices. So it has been a commodity which is easy to buy, use really short time, and then dispose garments. So and we have so much this kind of like emotional needs behind of the fashion consumption. We are not very seldom we are buying because we really need something. It's more like this emotional, psychological side that we are fulfilling with the fashion consumption side. So changing that is actually quite a big challenge. But of course, this kind of legislation, for example, this extended producer responsibility is one step towards that. Actually, what companies can do to support this more slower fashion consumption. So that means that, well, if companies understand that, well, the waste is actually part of their business, they have to take care of the waste, as well as take care of all the environmental impacts that actually this industry is causing. So then actually what would be really wise from the companies to move towards higher quality, longer use time, perhaps even second-hand markets, for example, and repair services. So all this actually, the extended producer responsibility legislation really supports this transition towards more also slower consumption.
So we are really looking forward to the EU new legislation in this respect as well. But let's get back to the UNEP report. And Claire, you were talking about the 3 priorities, but also these building blocks, which we can see now here on the slide. We're not going to be able to go through all of the 9 building blocks, but maybe you can share some insights on a couple of them.
Yes, happy to do so. And actually, our findings resonate very well with what you just shared, Kirsi, in the sense that a lot of the harmful impact of textile stems from unnecessary textile consumption and overproduction. I should obviously note that there are a lot of regional discrepancies. That is, there are regions that are clearly over-consuming, but others are not even meeting their basic needs. So keeping that in mind, the roadmap recommends action to address overconsumption and overproduction where it occurs. So those 9 building blocks really dig in details in what each stakeholder group could do. So concretely, if I'm diving into the block on unnecessary textile consumption and overproduction, if you are a brand, for example, you could work on ensuring that your products have a physical but also emotional durability to sort of build a customer connection with their products to encourage them to keep them longer. You can also reduce overproduction through on-demand ordering. That's a business model we are encouraging to consider and improve stock management. As a policymaker, you can explore trade policy instruments, but also development funds to support the production regions to adjust their business models. As a producer, you can consider better the raw material quality of your products. You can also connect with your brand clients to transition and prefer on-demand production. So those are examples of the recommendations we're putting forward. There is another building block, if I have time, I'd like to briefly touch upon, is the circular design. One of the biggest challenges we have for circularity is that simply the textile of today is not designed for the circular economy we want. And circular design, at the end of the day, is simply about creating circular products and business model in the first place, rather than having to deal with waste management further down in the value chain. So for it to happen, for example, as a policymaker, we are encouraging the development of credible circular design standards, but also creating training center for sustainable design, mandating the phasing out of harmful chemicals, which remain a significant barrier to recycling, by the way. If you're a brand, you can design products to prefer lower impact materials and design for durability and obviously design for recycling. So I hope it was a good teaser for the roadmap, because there are much more in the full report and yeah.
Yes, I'm sure that you will have possibilities to discuss the roadmap during lunch and in the expo area later. But and it was interesting to hear about design, which is a key element in the whole transformation. But Kirsi, your work in the Phoenix Research Group has very similar outcomes, and we actually have a slide of the Phoenix work as well. So how would you like to comment, Claire?
Yes, Phoenix is a 6 years project that actually there's quite many different researchers involved in different disciplines, where we try to create a new understanding what kind of systemic change actually we have to do in the textile and fashion sector, so that we can create a new balance. And there are different research actually ongoing. This is like a combined of different research tracks, that what kind of things at least we need to do. So of course there are something linked to fibers, recycling, closing the loops, design strategies, business strategies, different kind of new kind of sustainable, slower fashion consumption. Also the social side is included. But what we also try to say that, well, this might not be enough if we are just talking about circular economy and closing the loop, that we also have to take seriously the sufficiency, that actually we are producing too much. There are too much this overconsumption, too much overproduction. So we also have to take in the sufficiency and really begin to think about where is actually the balance that we can actually somehow try to reach this earth capacity to carry. So that's something that we also try to include in the discussion.
Well, that's a good point to bring out in the World Circular Economy Forum, that the circular economy is a great start, but it's not enough. Claire, as a conclusion, we could definitely say that transformation is needed on all levels, but do you have any call to actions for value chain stakeholders that you would like to say as a conclusion?
I do.
Yes? Well, you have the slide as well, so yes, you do.
Yes. The roadmap not only detailed the 9 building blocks to transition to circularity in the textile value chain, but also identified a few gaps which we need to address if we have the ambition to achieve those building blocks. So the very first one is that we need a set of global industry targets on sustainable and circular textiles. Second, we need more research. We need to understand better how to influence consumer behavior. We need stronger, better data and analysis tool to understand the impact of textiles and better inform decisions of the industry, but also on policymakers. And the third one I'd like to say a few words on is the need to create a coherent and global policy response. I think we've heard loud and clear from the previous speaker that practices in the global north has tremendous impact on the global south. Our practices, but also our policies. Policies developed in one region have impact beyond national borders. That is clear. So out of our consultations, it came across quite also clearly that we needed to foster a dialogue and a coordination between policymakers at global level. So to that end, the global roadmap and I today invite interested parties to engage with us in UNEP to explore how to shape a potential coordination mechanism on textiles. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for the discussion, Claire and Kirsi. Let's give a big hand for our speakers. Thanks. And I'm going to leave the clicker here on the table. Our session is about to reach its end. Last but not least, we still have one more interesting case study to cover, and I want to invite Laura Zukowska-Supe from Swimby, Latvia, to join me on stage. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you.
You can go here. So Swimby is yet another interesting case study of companies that we could say that are born circular. But can you tell us about your business idea?
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having us. It's a great honor to be here today and tell you more about what we do. And while I will be explaining about Swimby, you will hear that I am tackling all the problems previous speakers already mentioned. For example, Swimby is making only custom-made garments. So you can come to us with your dream swimwear idea and we will make it real. So we don't have ready-to-wear collections, so we are not overproducing and dealing with the possible waste. That's one thing. And we believe that if you have one garment that is made to you specifically, it will serve you long-term and you won't buy new swimwear every year. So again, that's a plus. Also, we are using fabric that is made from regenerated plastic waste. And we are printing it ourselves, so we are buying fabric only in white, again, to save resources. And that allows us to deliver any design client wants. So this is a plus win-win situation. We have a zero waste manufacturing process. So if we have some cutoffs, and of course there are cutoffs, we make different small headbands or scrunchies, or if there is some damaged fabric in the process, we can make nice bags, unique, one of a kind. So we are not throwing anything out, and we are looking at different possibilities how to save fabric and other resources that we are using. And also we are working together with scientists. Now, as far as we know, we are the only brand out there that has been testing our garments in a laboratory on microplastic pollution. Yesterday there was a discussion about indicators that we need to measure our impact on the environment, and then today we heard that there are many companies doing greenwashing. They are claiming to be sustainable or circular, but there is no baseline, no indicators. We are not that kind of company. We know our baseline, we know how much microplastics are coming out of our garments, and we are collecting it. So we are going one step further and tackling many problems at our end.
Great. And I definitely want to come to you for the custom-made swimwear. I just want to show off, for example, this one for the audience and also for the online audience because they are so wonderful. Now, Swimby is also a social enterprise, which means that you use your profits to solve socially important issues. And in your case, it's waste management and environmental protection. But why did you choose this model of a social enterprise?
Yeah, we are a social enterprise, and in Latvia it's a new thing. It started in 2018. And we are happy to be part of it because for us, social enterprise is a quality mark. Again, it means that we are recognized by the state, that we are trustworthy, that we are transparent, that you can really rely on what we say that we are delivering, that we are not circular washing or greenwashing, just claiming to be circular or sustainable. So it is a new thing, it's just bringing awareness to clients, but still we are happy to be part of it because for us it's a quality sign, and that means that also we are not working in a gray area. Many textile and fashion industry workers do. They don't pay salaries enough, they don't pay taxes, they don't care about environment. For us, it's the other way around. We do everything the best of our abilities, and this social enterprise status allows us to be recognized and by the state and by the clients that we are really trustworthy.
That's very interesting. Now, we have a lot of influential people here in the audience, both here and online. We've got business leaders and policymakers and representatives of the public sector. Is there something special that you want to say to them, or is there something that you might need in order to go forward with Swimby's endeavors?
I would have many things to
yes,
say
probably.
about what we heard today, but just a couple of them. If you are a small enterprise and social enterprise and filling all the boxes, actually you are less appealing to investor because you can't earn as fast as normal company does. So I would like to see more support for companies like us, small ones, startups, SMEs that are delivering all the goals already. We don't need to make any shifts, but we need the support to scale. And now we see in coming this Green Deal and a lot of money to existing big companies to shift, but not so much support for smaller ones or sustainable ones already from the day one. Then again, I would like to see more of these indicators and quality signs all around the EU, because as mentioned also yesterday and today, each country has their own policies, has their own indicators. Somebody is measuring something, somebody is not measuring anything. So this is something that needs to be tackled. And finally, also support to the scientists, for example, to really tackle this microplastic pollution, because there are some sporadic events all across the EU, but we don't see systematic approach to this. And we are a very small company in Latvia, and we can't do everything. But if there would be a EU level policy on this, we could really solve, for example, microplastic, or at least start solving it, because it is everywhere. So just a couple of things, but there are many. And I hope that all of these policies and roadmaps will really be implemented and help us to be better sector. Yeah.
I'm sure your messages were heard loud and clear, and you can, of course, continue the discussion later during lunch. But thank you, Laura, very much for coming over here to Helsinki to tell us about Swimby. And Laura's presentation really gave us some food for thought. And I think that as takeaways of this session, I might conclude that a true fashion and textile revolution calls for innovation, tougher regulation, and attractive incentives for sustainable business. And as already mentioned in the dialogue with Claire and Kirsi, a circular economy is a great start, but true transformation is also dependent on a wider cultural change and a change in our collective values. So we must be able to reduce consumption, to curb our obsession with growth, and to reorient around human and planetary well-being. And this goes for the textiles and fashion sector as well. We've seen great examples of this kind of activity today. And if you're still hungry for more, then please visit Aalto University's exhibition, The Wardrobe of the Future, which you can find in the expo area right next door. And if you are online, you can also visit the exhibition through the WCEF website or through the app, the WCEF app, by going to the expo page. So there will be more inspiration, solutions, and innovations to be found there. And actually, as a fun fact, I'm wearing one of the innovations today because this garment is made of iron cell, which is a fiber innovation developed by Aalto University and the University of Helsinki as a joint effort. And iron cell can be made from, for example, recycled textiles, from cardboard, or from newspapers, or even some agricultural waste materials such as straw. So it's a very, very interesting new fiber innovation. And the special thing about it is that after the iron cell process, the fiber actually becomes better in its quality. So quite impressive. But now I want to thank very warm-heartedly all of our speakers and all of you for being here. We had a nearly full house in this session, which is great, and we have probably lots of people that have joined us online. So thank you very much for following this session, and I wish you a great lunch break, and hopefully the discussion continues on many other arenas from now on. So thank you, and see you later.